Many years have passed since the great release of God of War 2018. Many winters have passed, and by this point, I'm sure the bulk of you watching this video today have had the opportunity to experience God of War Ragnarok. No matter what happens next and whatever transpires by the end of this review, I want Santa Monica Studios and whoever participated in creating this great title to know that their accomplishments will be heralded for many, many generations to come. God of War and the entire God of War series is a series that will never be forgotten in these gaming streets. It's a special title, and it's something crazy that they were able to take a character that I almost hated into one of my favorite characters in game series of all time. God of War 2018 is something special, and so is Ragnarok. But now that I've said all those words about God of War Ragnarok, it's time for me to take off the kitty gloves. And the biggest issue is that the game wasn't able to distract me well enough to ignore the repetitive gameplay loop that every game has. The gameplay loop is essentially get onto your boat, have some dialogue, have a conversation with Atreus or Mimir, get to the location you're trying to get to, realize that there's something blocking your path, get off the boat, complete the puzzle to continue moving forward. After completing the puzzle, go to a surprisingly open area that seems perfect for what? Combat. Get an ambush out of nowhere, defeat the enemies that lay in front of you. After defeating your enemies, return onto the boat and then move on to your objective. And this is one of the issues that most sequels face on the regular. Not enough time has passed for the studio to completely revolutionize the game, so when you hop back in, it will essentially feel like a continuation of God of War 2018. Now, why am I complaining so much about the gameplay loop when I loved it in 2018? What is Ragnarok missing that 2018 had so much of? I have the answer to all of these questions. 1. Ragnarok is fundamentally the same as 2018. It has lost, though, that new car smell. By this I mean the idea of Kratos being in the Norse mythology is gone. We have seen most of his immense character development already take place, and we have already gotten to know and understand this gameplay loop pretty well. Second, and most importantly, is the story of Ragnarok. The story of God of War Ragnarok is not bad by any means, but compared to its predecessor, it's simply inferior. The tale lacked focus or any substantial goal until perhaps only midway through the game, when Loki discovers the rift underneath Asgard, Odin's true goal. And worst of all, it failed to keep me fully engaged, especially in the beginning hours of the game. Dare I say, it almost bored me at a number of moments before finding Tyr. This isn't exactly a flaw, as you can clearly see from a writing decision. This was intentionally done. Atreus and Kratos were on a journey to discover the true destiny of Loki. He, Atreus, is a foolish teenager who does not yet know his path. This is the journey we all take to reach adulthood. So the narrative does the exact same thing. It feels confused, lost, not knowing which step to take next. While this is an interesting perspective and path to take, from a storytelling perspective, it can definitely leave the viewer feeling disappointed. I even began to truly feel really frustrated as I felt that the story was moving way too slow and I was being drip-fed a story that wasn't really there in the first place. Before we meet Tyr, there is absolutely nothing to grab onto or to latch onto. The thing is, we'd get to a location and I would feel that the goal was constantly being pushed and pushed and pushed away from me the closer I got to it. I felt that the game was artificially lengthening or pushing away my objective because there wasn't really much of an objective to consume in the first place. This may definitely be a controversial opinion, but this is how I feel and how I felt when I was playing the title. God of War maintains its quality in almost every single area but the story. Its characters are still great, the performances are still stellar. The downfall of the Aesir family is beautifully told. It's just a shame we didn't get enough time with them. Even Odin, we actually never got to understand why he became who he is. For a tale that looks deep into its characters, it's sad to see that we weren't able to discover the pillars that constructed the evil menace that Odin had truly become. It seems by the end of it all that God of War chose to go with a villain who was just bad because he had to be bad. Now, there may be a few questions on why I'm spending so much time considering the story in this review. Firstly, I place a lot of importance on the story because God of War is fundamentally a story-driven game ever since the reboot in 2018. The gameplay and the spectacle are very important parts, and so are the graphics and the other aspects and even the lore, but by the end of it all, it's a story-driven game where the narrative plays the most important parts, and of course the relationships built and destroyed over time as the plot progresses. And the second reason the story is so important is because the new content told in the story and the plot is essentially going to be the main catalyst and fundamental of this sequel. While God of War has really great gameplay, the main reason most people chose to go ahead and buy God of War Ragnarok was to see how the story was going to unfold. So when this aspect fails to grab you for a larger portion of the story, it's a real disappointment. Dare I say, the game is even boring to the point that I had no real incentive to keep playing at multiple points during the story. Now, the saving grace is that these feelings do fade away as the game heavily ramps up in the second act. In terms of structure, this is an aspect where Santa Monica definitely do well. The new realms are beautifully made and the old realms have been altered greatly, especially Midgard because of Fimbulwinter. A great way to refresh an area we already know so well. Visually, God of War is still one of the best looking games ever. Not only is their art style very unique, but the graphical fidelity they're able to reach with even the PS4 is still impressive to this day. In terms of RPG elements, this is where I can feel they did a little bit too much. Too many abilities, skills, charms, relics, abilities, extra moves have been added unnecessarily. Less is more, and I think the upgrade system would have benefited greatly from less upgrades and moves being available to the player. Because there's so much to interact with, it's very easy for the player to become overwhelmed and end up missing the bulk of abilities that they've created. Now it's time to get granular. Is God of War Ragnarok a good value proposition as a patience gamer? Let's consider the statistics. Focusing on the main story, you'll get about 26.5 hours of main story content. If you choose to interact with the side content, you'll get about 40 hours. As I previously mentioned, that you may be disappointed as you may feel that there isn't enough of an incentive for you to keep playing the game, and this is definitely the same with the side content. If I felt this way with the main story, just feel how much stronger that lack of incentive is when you get into the side content. In terms of value proposition, you definitely will be getting your money's worth in terms of gameplay time though. And if you're going to be purchasing this game then because you've decided to pick it up, on GG Deals, these are the following prices in which you can pick it up if you look for a favorable deal for yourself. The price definitely has not dropped over time, and it definitely still maintains its value over the years, which is quite interesting. If you're somebody who's still apprehensive about actually picking up God of War Ragnarok, I can definitely say it's about time you pulled the trigger. At the very least, you should play this game to find out the conclusion of the tale of Atreus and Kratos. It's truly something special, and I'd recommend all of you pick it up just to experience that as well, including the great visual spectacle Santa Monica is able to provide all gamers who interact with the game. At its core, God of War Ragnarok is a game held back by its slow pacing, a story that lacks focus, and a gameplay loop that gets old fast. Despite all that, it's hard to not give Santa Monica their flowers for still knocking everything else out of the park. God of War Ragnarok gets an 8 out of 10. This game's crowning achievements were all but achieved in God of War 2018. By the end of it all, I think Santa Monica Studios did their best to try and fulfill and give the fans an ending that we would all find satisfactory. Despite all of their efforts, they were able to create a great title. Just short, of their masterpiece in 2018. My name is Explicit Sage, and I thank you for joining me once again. Take it easy, gents.